tutorial, what you will need is some scissors, a crochet hook. This is the size 4.25. I don't know if y'all can see, it won't focus. And this is a 5mm. It's personal preference, honestly, and it really depends on your tension. So if you have a loose tension, I recommend using a 4.25 so your squares don't come out too big. But if you have a real tight tension, you could probably get away with using a 5mm, but it's just trial and error. So for my squares, I used a 4.25mm, and it gave me a 5x5 square because you're going to be doing 5 rounds. You will also need 5 different color yarns. It's also optional. You can use however many colors you want, but for a 5x5, you will need 5 different colors. All of these colors are either big twists, well, all 3 of these are big twists, and then this is loops and thread from Michaels, and this is all weight 4 yarns. So let's get started. This part is really going to be for my beginner girls or my beginner viewers that don't know how to make a granny square. But if you know how to make a granny square, just skip ahead. So we're going to go ahead, and mind you, everybody does their granny squares differently. So just figure out what works best for you. Like I said, trial and error until you figure everything out. So we're going to start off by doing a magic circle. Or a magic ring. So put your hook under, and then now we're gonna go ahead and chain 3, and this does count as your first double crochet. Now we're gonna go ahead and place 2 double crochets into the magic ring. After you have your first cluster, go ahead and chain 2. 1, 2. And we're going to go ahead and place another cluster of 3 double crochets into the circle. Repeat and chain 2. 1, 2. We're going to place another cluster of 3 double crochets into the circle. Chain 2, and we're going to place our last cluster of double crochets. Now you're going to go ahead and pull the string so we can close off, and you should have 4 sides. It should be a square. Now after you have your last cluster, go ahead and chain 2. So 1, 2, and we're going to place we're going to slip stitch into this first chain. So slip stitch, turn over, pull through. And then we're going to go ahead and take our scissors and cut the working yarn. And this is how your square should look. And this is the start of your granny square. Okay. So for my next color, I'm going to go ahead and use this navy blue. And we're going to go ahead, slip knot. Everybody starts their granny squares differently, so it's also subject to change. So I like to weave in my ends as I go, so I'm going to show y'all how we do that over time. So go ahead, insert your yarn. Now I'm going to go ahead and chain 3. This does count as your first double crochet. So yarn over, chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're gonna go ahead and place 1 double crochet into this stitch, well, into the hole. So yarn over, pull through 2, and place 1 more And make sure you're grabbing your yarn from the back like that. Make sure when you do it, you do the stitches over the yarn. Go ahead and yarn over and place 1 double crochet into the gap. So 1 double crochet, place another 2 double crochets, another one, 3 double crochets. You're basically making clusters of granny squares. So next, this color is hard to see, I'm sorry y'all. So next, we're gonna go ahead, after you have your 3 clusters with your 3 double crochets, chain 2, 1, 2, and place another cluster into the gap. Yarn over, 1, 2, 3. You'll always be placing clusters of 3 into any of the gaps. It'll always be 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next gap, and we're gonna place 3 double crochets. Now after we have our 3 double crochets, chain 2. It's very repetitive. Yarn over, place another 2 double crochets. That's what it should look like. And we're gonna repeat the same thing into this one. And you see how I'm gripping my yarn, putting my yarn behind the stitches so that we don't have to weave anything in for real. So just make sure your yarn is in the back like that. Now we're back to our first cluster when we only put 3 double crochets. Now we're gonna yarn over and place another 3 double crochets into the gap. So that was 1, that's 2, that's 3. And then we're gonna go ahead and chain 2. And then we're gonna go ahead and slip stitch into that first stitch. I know y'all probably can't see. Use this one. Then we're gonna go ahead and cut. And that's our second round to our granny square. And it should look something like this. Go ahead and repeat what we just did. So slip knot. Then we're gonna be going, you could go into any corner to start off. So I'm gonna go into this middle gap right here. So insert my hook, and then take my yarn. So now we're gonna repeat and we're gonna chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. This does count as your first double crochet. So now we're gonna go ahead and place 2 more double crochets into the stitch, and make sure you're grabbing your yarn in the back so you don't have to weave anything in. So yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. And now when you have the middle gaps, you'll only be placing clusters of 3. No double, like, you know, just 1. So 3 stitches in the gap. The only stitches that I have, well, the only gaps that I have 2 are corners. So we're reaching a corner. So we're gonna do 3 double crochets. chain 2, another 3 double crochets, and then we're gonna go to our next gap, and we'll just be placing 3 double crochets in this stitch. Reaching our corner, so we're going to place our first cluster of 3. Chain 2, our next cluster of 3. And then we're going to move on to our next gap, and we'll just be placing 1 cluster. And this is basically all you do for every row. It's the same pattern. The square just tends to get bigger and bigger. Oops. Just gets bigger and bigger. Now, because it's so repetitive, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this with y'all, and then we'll go ahead and y'all can work y'all other 2 rounds, because this is 3 rounds, and we'll be done with our granny square. And you will need 8 granny squares, so and making sure we work our yarn in the rounds so that we don't have to weave anything in. We're at the corner stitch. Chain 2. And we can go ahead and cut. Now, this is what we are so far. This is what you should have. And you basically just repeat that pattern for another 2 rounds. It's the same thing. Only thing that's changing is your square is getting bigger, but it's the same pattern. So I'm not gonna keep doing it because it's getting repetitive. It's gonna get repetitive. So I'm gonna meet y'all once you have all 5 rounds done. Okay, so after you finish the next 2 rounds of your granny squares, you should have 5 rounds. You should have 8 granny squares. You will need 8 granny squares. I don't know if I said that in the beginning, but you will need 8. So I'm about to go ahead and lay mine out so y'all can see what y'all should have. So we're gonna face the wrong side up, and then we're gonna place the right side on the other side. So it should kind of look like if you was making a bag, basically. So now we're gonna go ahead and slip stitch all of these together. So me personally, when I'm slip stitching, I like to use a smaller hook, but I'm still gonna keep my 4.25. So we're gonna go ahead and take 2 granny squares. I'm gonna go ahead, slip stitch, and not slip stitch, make a slip knot, and then we're gonna insert it to the gap, and we're gonna slip stitch all the way down. So pull through, yarn over, pull through, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then we'll just pull it through. I don't know if y'all can see. Zoom in some more. So insert it. Insert, pull through. Okay, so this is what it should look like after you slip stitch the whole thing together. It should basically just look like that. Now, instead of cutting it off and stuff, you really don't have to do that, but if you need to, you can. I'm just gonna take mine and then just align each little gap. And I'm just gonna, well, first what you're gonna do is go through the first gap from your first granny square, and make sure you always have right sides together, and you should always see the wrong side. So right sides should always be together. So we're gonna insert the yarn between both gaps and then pull through, and you just repeat with your slip stitching. So insert, yarn over, pull through, insert, yarn over, pull through. Do that all the way down, and then this is what you should have now. It should look like this. Because we're at the end of this one, we cannot keep going. So what I'm gonna do is just cut it. And then pull it. And now I'm gonna go ahead and do the next square right here. Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and take your other granny square and then your 3 granny squares and connect the 2. Put your hook through the gaps. So we'll basically just be repeating what we just did, just slip stitching everything together. So I'm gonna keep slip stitching, and I'm gonna meet y'all back when I get to the end. So I don't know if what I had said was clear, but when I said you can stitch both of the squares together and then just go ahead and have just one row to do, that'll probably be better for beginners. So that's just a little heads up if the first part was a little too confusing for you. So I just went ahead and stitched both parts together, and now I'm just gonna do one row with just one, you know, thing of, I'm basically just gonna slip stitch across. And this way probably is easier for beginners, but if you don't want to have to keep cutting and doing all that extra, that part is probably best for you. So after you have both of your panels done, you're gonna go ahead and place right sides together, and you're always gonna work on the wrong side. So I'm gonna place wrong sides together, and for the sake of the video, I'm gonna use some stitch markers, And if you need them as well, you can. We're gonna go ahead and just not slip stitch, but you will slip stitch everything together. Just put it together like a regular cat hat. And I'm just putting all the stitch markers just to hold everything in place. You basically just want to slip stitch. You're gonna put your stitch markers on and make it as if it was a regular cat beanie. Now you will leave this part open because this is the part where you put your head at. So you basically are just gonna slip stitch along all of these corners. So slip stitch here, slip stitch the top and the sides. Leave the bottom portion alone because that's gonna be where you put your head at. So we're gonna go ahead and start slip stitching. So make a slip knot, and we're gonna place our hook into this gap. I definitely recommend for beginners, or even if you just don't want to mess yourself up, just take some stitch markers and piece everything together so you can have an idea of what you're doing. So we're just gonna repeat what we did to piece all the granny squares together. So slip stitching to piece everything together. Sorry, I was out of frame. We do that all the way around, but making sure we leave one side open for our head. So keep doing that all the way till you get to right here. So I'll meet y'all back. Okay, so I'm at my last few stitches, and so we're gonna go ahead and finish slip stitching. The whole pattern is basically like repetitive, so I hope y'all understand everything. Oops. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and cut. I don't know if I was in frame, but I hope I was. So go ahead and cut, and we're gonna go ahead and flip it inside out. Now I still have a lot of ends on mine, but I'll save that for later because I don't feel like doing it right now, I'm not gonna lie. So this is what you should have. This is what your cat beanie should look like. And of course you wouldn't have all these ends weaved in, because I hope y'all weave y'all's in and do as I say, not as I do, or whatever that saying is. And then you basically would just fold it like that. That's why we should weave our ends in, but I'm not doing it right now. So I'm gonna try it on for y'all. So once you're done, this is what you should have. You just have to mess with it and fix it to your own liking. And y'all, if yours don't come out like this on the first try, it's okay. Trial and error. Remake it. Keep doing it. Get your tension together. If it come out too big, if it come out too tight, just work on it until you get it, because it's easy. I promise it's an easy tutorial. So thank y'all for watching, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And y'all send me pictures of what y'all make. Bye y'all.